I want to start by just complimenting the amount of work that went in from the state. Your guys' team was incredibly on top of it. I think the Health and Human Services Secretary had contacted me directly and was in the midst of all of that. What was kind of going through your head in the moment that this happened, and how, I guess I can kick this off, because I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through some questions.
Yeah.
And we're going to open up discussion, if that's okay with everybody. And then we're going to take some questions from students at the end of this.
Yeah.
But how has that changed you politically? Where are you at since that? Bring us back to like the moment that where you are, and where are you at? Where's your head at today?
Yeah, so I had several speaking events that day, and we...
I'm gonna do the Charlie Kirk thing and say, guys, let's facilitate a conversation here. I promise that we'll get to the end of it and then we'll ask questions. Is that cool? All right, I love it. Thank you.
So,
by the way, this is the most turning point thing ever to have Fox News, Governor Cox, and Andy Biggs, the former Freedom Caucus chair, all together on a stage.
Right.
That's the most turning point-esque thing ever. So let's appreciate that.
So
where are you at?
Tyler, welcome to my alma mater. It's incredible to be back at Utah State University, and we're so proud that Turning Point picked Utah State University. And look at the turnout, the largest crowd ever. It's unbelievable. These are my Aggies, and Aggies are special. Look, so that day I had several speaking engagements, and I was back at the Capitol when my assistant came in, and she pulled me out and she said, we need you immediately. That's never a good sign when you're the governor. And I walked out, and there was a captain in our highway patrol, and he said, there's been a shooting at Utah Valley University, and Charlie Kirk has been shot. And even as the words are coming in, I'm having a hard time processing them. I said, that can't be. And I said, are you sure? Because sometimes when these things happen, there's a fog of war and you get bad information, right? And so somebody handed me their phone, and the video was already there. And I wished I hadn't seen that video. I can't unsee it. I know that's true for so many of you, and especially those of you who were there. And immediately, 30 seconds later, there was a call from the White House, and it was from the Situation Room. It was Marco Rubio. He was there. The Secretary of State was there for something else. I've known Marco for years. We're friends. And he said, hey, what is happening? And I said, Marco, nobody can tell us exactly what's happening. So then it's just, it's go mode. You get everybody together. And we were just trying to figure out which hospital was he at? What's the latest? And we were in constant
was writing op-eds speculating why Gen Z is disengaged or why young people will always be liberal.
We got to keep him alive. And then I knew about Charlie's wife. I knew he had 2 little kids, and that's the humanity of all of this, right? And I think it changed all of us, because what I realized very quickly is this was an attack on Charlie Kirk because of his political beliefs. And we knew that. And it was a political assassination, and people were afraid to say that. We should not be afraid to call things what they are. That's what it was. The second thing that mattered was we have to find the person responsible, and we have to hold them accountable, and we will do that, because I know our law enforcement here in Utah, and they are the best in the world. There was no way that this person was going to get away with it, and they came through. The third part, though, was this was more than just an attack on Charlie Kirk. This was an attack on free speech. It was an attack on America. It was an attack on American ideals. It was treasonous. It was, we have not had a high-profile assassination like this in my lifetime. I'm 50 years old, so it's been 55 years since we've had anything like this. And the weight of that sitting on all of us. And the fourth thing I knew is that Utahns weren't going to riot. They weren't going to start cars on fire. They weren't going to respond with violence.
Isn't that interesting?
Because that's who we are.
Isn't that interesting? I'm going to get into that question in a second, but I mean, when's the last time you saw a left-wing speaker have to cancel their event on campus? When was the last time you saw, riots that came out of a left-wing just meltdown? We saw the Summer of Love, right? That happened in 2020 with everything. Our side did what? Turned to prayer. Everyone here, I think, that we saw across the state of Utah turned to prayer, and we saw that immediately. And that's a huge credit to every single person that's a citizen here. And you've said some things that there's been some inflammatory rhetoric on both sides, and that you've coined the "disagree better" slogan. Is that really a both sides issue, or what's your opinion?
No, so I want to add to what Andy said here, because I think that's really important. One of the TPUSA staffers back there said this isn't just about left and right. It's about good and evil, right? Up and down, and that piece really matters to me. And I think that's what we're talking about here. Look, there is a thread here. As Andy said, when you call people fascists and Nazis, well, we went and liberated Europe from fascists and Nazis. That is an evil. And when you try to convince people that people who aren't fascists and Nazis are
normal people, regular people participating in civic process.
That's exactly right. That we get accused of that. Here's two of the most dangerous trends that we've seen over the past few years. This idea that speech is violence is so wrong, and even worse than that,
it's illogical.
It's illogical, but it goes a step worse than that, because then they think, well, then violence is speech. And when you see everything through a lens of oppressor and oppressed, which again is so dangerous, because it allows you to justify things that you would never otherwise do. And you think that then because someone said something that you don't like, that's violence towards me, which then justifies me being violent towards this person for speaking. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And that is a destructive mind virus in our society today.
So do you think... I'll let Jason hop in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So do you believe it is a both sides issue?
Look, okay.
No, the answer to that is no.
The answer, that mindset that I just told you is only coming from one side. That mindset is only coming from one side. That idea that speech is violence and violence is speech, that is not coming from the right. It is not coming from the right at all.
I've only seen it come from the left, I think, predominantly. That's what Andy said.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was trying to say, is this is not a both sidesism. I think there's a deeper problem here, and it's and I had to learn this myself, unfortunately, the hard way recently, and it's nihilism. I didn't even know what nihilism was. Right. Nihilism is this idea and this belief that you don't believe in anything. You don't believe in God. You don't believe in any sort of roots. You don't believe that there are morals. You don't believe that there is a good and bad. It's good and evil. You don't believe any of that. So if you look at it and kind of study it, and then you start to understand that for hundreds of years, this has been an issue. There are people that may have grown up in a conservative, idyllic household or neighborhood. Think of southern Utah. Think of Washington County. Is there a more, I mean, it's as beautiful as anything.
Think of Gilbert, Arizona.
Gilbert, Arizona.
There you go. That's it.
All right?
Yeah.
But it's...
You love Arizona.
But this nihilism takes root. And suddenly people don't believe that in anything. They don't have any roots in anything. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in these things.
And we've seen it here.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it here. I mean, we saw Drag Queen Story Hour in Provo.
Yeah. No.
I mean, we saw it not that long ago. We saw, again, I know we don't like BYU here, right? Yeah, I love it. Anytime we can get a boo for BYU, and I love it. So it's a great thing. You went to BYU. Did you go to BYU?
I was the place kicker at BYU on the football team. So
that's not the point.
I'm not too worried about it.
I'm teasing.
We soundly beat Utah State at the time. It's okay. Sorry. Kicked a lot of extra points here.
But we saw, again, that image of the Y being painted trans colors, right? Like that. I mean, that was an image that was like pretty jarring for those that are from Utah to see that, like, all around you, you have some of that evil that's just seeping in throughout the state. And I guess that's kind of like brings me to like some of those questions is, you know, is there a culture shift that's needing to occur, particularly after the events that have transpired over the last few weeks, that Utah needs to shift gears here a little bit? And how do we go about that?
So,
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Because there's been a soft approach in the state of Utah that has opened the door to the nihilism that you're talking about.
yeah, no, I think one of the lessons and things that is being taught by Charlie Kirk is that it's okay to talk about faith. It's okay to talk about religion. It's okay to talk about love of country. It used to be in politics not too long ago that the whole idea was, hey, you should really kind of separate the two. And now you've got this younger generation understanding, no, we don't have to separate the two. We can be sound, and we can give our message, and we can wear our faith proudly on our sleeves. And I think that is a healthy thing for a younger generation that is looking for roots, they're looking for cause, they're looking for affirmation. And Charlie Kirk, in many ways, gave a lot of us that have been involved in politics permission to go that extra step. I think it's only healthy for America.
So, can I? Yeah. Look, I want to. This is maybe the most important question that you've asked. Look, to the last question you asked, and I want to make sure I answer it correctly. There are violent people on the far right. It happens, and to say that that's not true would be a lie, because it has happened. Okay. Now, listen. But this piece really matters. The prophet I believe in, that just passed away, for the past couple years, has been talking about peacemaking and bridge building. And he very passionately believed that anger never persuades, and that hostility never convinces anyone. But here's the connection I want to make. That is not soft. Peacemaking is not soft. It's the hardest thing you can do. And that's what Charlie understood. And this matters because there is a rift in our party. Charlie wanted to go in and he wanted to engage. And people that he talked to, people who were very different than him, people that disagreed with him, you saw those videos just now. He treated them with respect, he treated them with love, and he treated them with dignity.
That's right.
And that is not soft. But there are people in our party who don't want us to do what Charlie did.
Right.
They just want to call each other names or not engage at all. And we can't fall prey to that.
So,
that can't be us.
As a follow-up, that opens up a really interesting question for me. And this is a little bit of a tricky question, so I don't want to put anyone on the spot if you don't feel comfortable with this.
We're going to let Andy answer it.
Oh yeah, Andy can answer.
The Arizona.
You know, you brought up the church. You know, is it time for the church to take mental illness a little bit more seriously instead of identifying with inclusion politics? Is that, and the community as a whole, when I say church, I mean the community as a whole, particularly in Utah. But what is the response on that? So, you know, we talk about, you know, we've got to be kind to people, but we also have to take some things very seriously and be tough.
Absolutely.
So how do you go about that? And just quick fire, what are some of the thoughts that you have that kind of go down the line with that?
Yeah, look, one of the things I want to be careful to do, the other thing my church teaches is that we all have agency and everybody is responsible for their own decisions. And look, the person who committed this horrific crime, that person is responsible for their decision. Not the church, not Utah, not someone else. That person is responsible. And We absolutely have to take mental illness more seriously in this country, and we have to get people help for what they're dealing with. And you know how you do that, though? Charlie had the answer to that as well. It's like, get off your couch, get off social media, get married, have kids, do something with your life. We have to have more grit and responsibility. So much of the mental illness we're seeing is caused by that.
If you can just say your name
Good evening, panel.
and then who you're talking to.
My name is Andrea, and my question goes out to Governor Cox. It's no secret that you and Charlie did not historically see eye to eye. There are multiple instances of Charlie calling you out for refusing to protect women's sports back in 2022, and even going so far as to say that you should be expelled from the Republican Party. Since Charlie's assassination at Utah Valley, you have seemed to change your tune about Charlie. How has Charlie Kirk's death personally impacted you?
Yeah, thank you. So, you know what? I don't know that my tune about Charlie has changed. I've learned a lot from Charlie over the years. That might surprise you. And I would hope that Charlie's tune, if I had an opportunity to talk to him today, might have changed a little bit about me. We've had an opportunity to share here. You brought up one very important one, and I want to address it because I know how passionate Charlie was about this, and I know what a difficult decision that was for me at the time. So this was about men and women's sports, right? And I just want to be very clear. I never advocated for that. I never wanted that at all. What had happened was there was a lawsuit in Idaho where they had passed the first ban, and there was a judge had ruled, had put that ban on, had put a hold on that ban, so that in Idaho, boys could still play girls' sports after 2 years. What we tried to do in Utah was, we knew that would happen if a judge would do the same thing here, so we came up with a new idea that would make a difference there, where you had to go before a commission, and if you were going to dominate women's sports or win, take away scholarships or anything like that, you wouldn't be allowed to play. The judge did exactly that. The judge took our ban and that I had vetoed. It got overturned, and we worked together to fix it. And so I just want to be very clear. That's not what I wanted. And I know that the problem with social media is that that's all you hear, is that this is the governor who wanted boys to play women's sports. That is not what I ever wanted. I'm fully supportive of not doing that. By the way, to your point, we passed one of the first bathroom bills in the state. I signed that. We also, one of the problems that was happening with sports in our country and in our state, and by the way, this is true in most states, that they required you to transition for a year before you could play, which was actually incentivizing transitioning. So we stopped that as well and made it so you couldn't transition as a youth, as a minor. And so, because again, we felt like those were the right things to do. And so I think Charlie and I would agree on 99% of things, but here's what matters. What matters is that we are engaging, and I can't say this enough. Charlie and I would have loved to have had this debate together. I wished we had that back 3 years ago when this happened, because I think he would have understood me better, and I don't think he would have agreed with me, though. I think he would have still been upset with me, and that's what I want to encourage. Look, the Republican Party, if we're going to win elections, if we're going to get, instead of having a 4-seat majority in Congress and just a 1-seat majority in the Senate, so we're not shutting down the government, we're going to have to get a lot of people that don't agree with every single thing that you or I believe in, and so we've got to make space for that, and I think we can do that. We're doing that here tonight, and I think that's what Charlie was